You weak, pathetic fool.
No one told you life was gonna be this way.
Soccer bopper, more fun.
Hello and welcome to the Mediocre Show. Let me tell you what the best PS1 games of all times were. So here we go, top 10 PlayStation 1. Oh come on! Yup, it's no secret. The abundance of top 10 videos is nothing short of mind-blowing. Telling the world what the best PlayStation 1 titles were, or which they liked the most, that's one of the big trends on YouTube. And frankly, I totally get why. The PlayStation is one, if not the gaming console, which paved the way to modern 3D gaming. Since its inception in 1994, the PlayStation built a legacy nothing short of unique, and a lot of games from that era became instant classics, no questions asked. Others, however, well, nowadays you could call them failed experiments. Man, 20 years. Talk about feeling old. Well, to tell you the truth, the PlayStation library is so huge and filled with amazing titles that it's difficult to make a top 20, let alone a top 10 to begin with. However, I kind of noticed a theme among most top 10s on YouTube, and let me tell you what they mostly consist of. You have a lot of Crash Bandicoot, some Spyro, some Symphony of the Night, then you have the Resident Evil titles and Silent Hill, some Tekken, and to round everything up, Metal Gear Solid. That's enough material already to work a top 10. While I essentially agree, those classics barely show the true strength of the PlayStation library. We are talking somewhat over 1200 different games here.
Mamma mia!
So no surprise that some gems are overlooked by the sheer fandom that surrounds others. Also, while some titles were awesome back in the day, they didn't particularly age well. Graphics are not that important if the game mechanics are great, but I reach my limits if the controls make me wanna puke. So I took to task to search far and wide which titles could make a top 5 hidden gems for the PlayStation 1, which games aged well and which games are still worth a look in 2014. Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to dive through a sea full of shovelware bullshit to find their cherry on the ice cream sundae. So without further ado, let me present to you my personal top 5 hidden gems for the PlayStation 1. Enjoy. Number 5. Ehrgeiz came out in 1998 and was developed by DreamFactory. And look at this, the publisher was actually Squaresoft, you know, today's Square Enix. The game is essentially a 3D fighting game. Imagine Power Stone and Tekken had a baby. That's Ehrgeiz for you. Man, even some moves resemble Tekken. Well, no surprises there. Like most fighting games at the time, Ehrgeiz also had an arcade version, which was published by Namco, the makers of Tekken. That explains the similarities right there. However, let's get to why Ehrgeiz is so special. For starters, the character grid. You've got your generic choices like the classic Muay Thai kickboxer or girl with a yo-yo. What? Is that Ness's sister? Well, those are here. However, you also have the choice to play as Cloud, Strife, Tifa or Sephiroth. Yeah, a fighting game where you can play as your beloved Final Fantasy VII characters. Ever wanted to beat the living piss out of Cloud? Well, now you can. But other than that, what does the game have to offer? How does it fare today? The game is very easy to pick up and play, something that's very important for fighting games. The controls are a little clunky but workable. You can tell it was made in that awkward going to 3D gaming phase, but hey, that applies to pretty much every fighting game of the time, so I'd give it a pass. Going back to its gameplay, like I said, it's very easy to play. Oh fuck that, so it's a button masher paradise? Not necessarily. Most certainly button mashing can work, but given the 3-dimensional arenas, range attacks and combo breakers, you soon realize that there's way more depth to the fighting system than a first glance might allow. Frankly, I had a blast recording this footage and had to convince myself to stop. If you're a Final Fantasy VII fan and into fighting games, you owe it to yourself to give this game a chance and take it for a spin. It's a great game for a couple of rounds, or go full tournament mode with your friends, whatever floats your boat. Apart from the standard beaten up mode, there's also some mini games and a weird dungeon crawler questing thingy. I wonder what they were smoking to put this in, but hey, more content! I'd say bail on this BS and focus on the fighting, then you're all set. Number 4. Romance of the Three Kingdoms 6, Awakening of the Dragon. Alright guys, I know what you're all thinking. PD, what is this bullshit? A strategy game for the PlayStation? You gotta be kidding me. Listen to me, if you look past the flaw that strategy games are naturally PC dominated and therefore the controls will suck a mad donkey dick, you'll quickly see that this game has a ton to offer. So much in fact that I'd say you're completely overwhelmed at first, especially if you're not used to this genre. I mean, look at all the options here. Fuck. Romance of the Three Kingdoms. What's that, PD? Well, I'm glad you've asked. The Romance of the Three Kingdoms saga is based upon the tale of the warring states in ancient China. You probably know another series which is based upon the saga, the Dynasty Warriors games. Yeah, can you imagine putting this?
We must fight Guan Yu. I am my own opponent? This will be difficult.
Into this? And this?
My sense of honor dictates that you must die.
Into that? Looks like a match made in heaven, I don't see the problem. Let me give you an introduction to the game, maybe you'll understand my fascination then. You start by selecting your time period. Each time period involves a different plot, depending whether you want to play the campaign in historical or fictional mode. If you're a true badass, or just fed up with all the Chinese swagger jaggers,
He has no style. He has no grace.
you can always just create your own characters and start taking over ancient China by yourself. The game is solid turn-based strategy. You have a base amount of settlement management, a decent number of diplomatic options, and a neat intelligence apparatus for spy activity and other shenanigans. Make no mistake though, the ultimate goal of this game is drafting soldiers, forming armies and going to war. This is a war-based game through and through and requires some thought-out resource management if you want to go all the way. Moving all your soldiers into battle could leave your base vulnerable to counterattacks. So you gotta pick and choose when it's time to attack and when it's time to focus on defense. The battles itself, well, they offer a basic amount of depth. Depending on the terrain and location of the battle, strategies have to be adjusted. Running off your entire army will leave your supply tent unattended and ready for the taking by the enemy. You run out of supplies for your troops, you're finished. Same goes for the enemy forces as well, so if possible lure your enemies out of position and take their supplies as fast as you can. Apart from basic attacks, there's a number of special attacks like fire attacks, ambushes, duels, which I particularly like since the game goes into this great duel mode. That's the closest the game gets to Dynasty Warriors, I guess. Pretty neat. Overall, this is a huge game where you literally can spend hundreds upon hundreds of hours in. The fact that it also allows up to 8 players in couch co-op makes it even better, so if you enjoy the setting and get something out of sophisticated strategy, give this one a try, if you can get your hands on it. Number 3. Dino Crisis. Ah, Dino Crisis, we meet again. As a kid, I tried to play this game and got really frustrated. And in 20 somewhat years it didn't get any easier. This game was one of the first entries to the survival horror genre on the PlayStation 1, but is almost always forgotten cause Resident Evil and Silent Hill draw all the attention away. You might already recognize a striking similarity to Resident Evil, huh? Movement pattern, controls, graphics.
That's disgusting.
Even the voice acting is just as bad.
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
You're right.
Okay, maybe it's not that terrible, but it certainly isn't the best. Strictly speaking, it's no surprise the games are so similar, cause this one was also made by Capcom and Shinji Mikami himself, the inventor of Resident Evil. Even back in the day, people used to cry out, "What the fuck is this shit? Resident Evil with dinosaurs? Better give me damn zombie dinosaurs if you know what I'm saying." Oh come on guys, give the game a chance. I mean, yes, it's survival horror of dinosaurs and the plot starts quite generic. You're part of a special forces group tasked to evacuate a scientist called Dr. Kirk from an island. Hooray! Sounds exciting already. Well, the game makes no attempt of beating around the bush. You encounter the first dinosaurs pretty much straight away, and let me tell you, fighting these fucking things will make you miserable. Not only can they take a lot of abuse, they also move way better and smarter than generic zombies. Capcom added a few nuances to Dino Crisis that I really like. For instance, if attacked you can lose your gun and have to pick it up again. Also, enemies can cause open wounds, which lead to you bleeding unless you stop it. I'm not joking here, being stuck in a room with these things, especially in the beginning when you barely have any ammo or weapons, will give you goosebumps as soon as you hear steps in the hallway. Great part about the game, there's 3 different endings, so if you're into old school kind of survival horror games, you should pick this one up. You can also find it on PSN, so have fun. Number 2. Parasite Eve. Parasite Eve is a action role-playing game by Squaresoft based on the name-giving novel by Hideaki Sena. Hope that's pronounced correctly. It was also the first mature rated game by Square. Pretty cool. The story starts very casually with a Christmas show at the opera. Seems pretty ordinary, but only until the entire crowd starts to spontaneously combust. Man, this girl sure puts on one hell of a performance. We take control of a young NYPD police officer named Aya Breyer, who doesn't seem to be affected by the evil curse of the opera lady. We soon get to know that the main theme of the game is genetic evolution, with the rise of Eve and the so-called mitochondria. The game has a very dark tone, and during the story we get to know how and why Aya is connected to all of this. I know that we have a lot of great female lead characters nowadays, but oftentimes Aya Breyer is dearly overlooked. In my opinion, she's definitely one of the best of all time. Let me tell you, as a kid I was terrified by this game. At the time the graphics were super realistic and the atmosphere was very tense. It was pretty much the adult version of Final Fantasy with guns. Combat wise, there are random encounters in which you'll go into battle mode. Similar to other JRPGs, you have an action time bar. However, while in combat you can freely move in the area and dodge attacks. That gives the game enough depth to make the fights dynamic and exciting. The system was actually later adopted by games like Vagrant Story, another non-Final Fantasy game by Squaresoft. Man, I gotta say, back then Square definitely took more chances and made amazing and creative games. And what do we get today? This nonsense? I mean, who asked for this? Where's my Parasite Eve 3? Oh. Well. Completely forgot about that one. Whatever. Overall, this is definitely not a game made for kids, and back in the day tons of the plot went right over my head, so I didn't really appreciate the entirety of the game until a few years later, when I picked it up again. That's the reason why I highly recommend checking this game out when you didn't have the chance back in 1998. Apart from the missing voice acting, the game holds its own pretty well to this day, so if you're interested, this one is available on PSN as well, so go check it out. And the undisputed number 1. Alundra. Oh yeah, this is where it's at. Alundra was one of the first games I've ever played for the PlayStation 1, and in 20 somewhat years this game hasn't lost a single step. I'm very disappointed that this game doesn't get enough credit from my peers, so let me give you an introduction to what I believe is one, if not the most underrated title in the PlayStation 1 library. The game is named after our hero, Alundra, who gets shipwrecked and found on the shore of a small village called Enoa. From here on out, Alundra realizes that he has the power to enter the dream world of other people, and proceeds to help the townfolk because, for some reason, the village seems to suffer from a terrible curse, and soon after, we learn that a demon called Melzas plans to merge his world with the one of Alundra. It might sound very generic at first, but the farther you dive into the story, the darker and more twisted it gets, so it's far from a happy-go-lucky kid story if you expect that. Death is all around in the world of Alundra, so don't let the bright colors and happy looking atmosphere fool you. At this point you might recognize a few familiar themes, and you're right, this game doesn't necessarily look like a PlayStation 1 game. It could very well be a Super Nintendo game if you compare it to, say, Terranigma for example. There's not a big jump in graphics and mechanics, however, that's the main reason this game aged so tremendously. For the same reason we can go back to classics like A Link to the Past, the same reason we should have for a game like Alundra. Like Zelda games, you have an assortment of different weapons and equipment, and you can also sprint at will and jump. That might be one of the minor problems I have with the game. The platforming can be a little frustrating at times, since you can hardly judge distances because of odd camera angles. But as soon as you're getting used to it, it's not that big of a deal. You also have to get used to your first weapon, the dagger, since its reach isn't that great either, but as soon as you get the flail, you can kiss the dagger goodbye and hold your enemies at bay. The game is very easy to play, has a very interesting story and emphasizes exploration and puzzle solving. It will never hold your hand, give you waypoints or any other kind of obvious help. Some might recognize that as a flaw nowadays, others will like the hardcore aspect of it. In many respects, the developers learned from the mistakes that were made during the 16-bit era and adjusted the genre of action-adventure RPGs for the next generation of consoles. At the time where developers struggled to jump to 3D gaming, Matrix Software focused on what made gaming great in the first place and developed this masterpiece. I urge each and every one of you, if you like 16-bit classics like A Link to the Past, Terranigma or Secret of Mana, you should absolutely check this title out. Again, Alundra is available on PSN, so if you have some time for it, during the winter break for example, you owe it to yourself to take a look at it. You won't regret it, guaranteed. And there you have it, my top 5 hidden gems. Happy 20th birthday PlayStation, it's been one hell of a ride so far, and if your game wasn't in the list, make sure to leave it in the comment box below and tell me why you think it should belong to the list of hidden gems for the PlayStation 1. Like I already said, with 1200 different titles you ought to overlook some, that's just natural. But as always, don't forget to like, favorite and subscribe, it's very much appreciated, thank you in advance. And if you want to see more funsies of this channel, make sure to click one of the annotations, they take you to other videos I did over the last few weeks, yeah. And I've been told they were pretty good, so have fun with them. And I will see you guys next time. Take care and goodbye.